Frightfurs are, in my opinion, the #1 rogue deck in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment. So, basically the entire objective of the deck is to disarm your opponent's field, just wipe it, and attack for huge amounts of damage in like one turn. So they're called OTK Fluffals because they'll kill you in one turn from 8k. That is the general consensus. Now, how do you do that? Just take a look at this. Okay, so this is a little game of Fluffals that I was playing earlier. Now, on this one, I wouldn't even consider this a good opening hand, but this just goes to show, like, the power of the Fluffals, how they can, like, recover themselves from a, almost a brick, really. So, you have Edge Imp Chains and Fluffal monsters that combine to equal your fusion materials, your, Frightfurs. So, without one or the other, you're really in a pickle. So, we'll see how this plays out. So this is in a really fast forward. This will be his entire turn right here. So this is a Noble Knight deck. Hang on, let me turn this sound down. So this is a Noble Knight deck that I'm playing right here, and I would argue that this is a pretty good starting field. Now he doesn't have anything protecting his monsters, which is normally what a Noble Knight would do. So we'll see here. First thing I did was Toy Vendor. Now, what a Toy Vendor does, that lets me pick a card from my hand, throw it into the graveyard, reveal the top card of my deck, and if it is a Fluffal, I can special summon a Fluffal from my hand. Now, it went a little bit quick, but what I did was throw the Fluffal wings into the graveyard, and that'll come back into use later. So, what did that do? I revealed a Dark Hole, and it went into the graveyard. That did nothing at the moment, but it can have some effects. So, having that in the graveyard as well will come into play next, and we'll see as the turns go on. So, I ended my turn. You can see that that's not really a good play. So, whenever Toy Vendor goes into the graveyard, it lets you grab a Fluffal or Edge Imp monster from your deck. So, wiping that would really become a good thing for me. So here's summoning Fluffal Dog, which has the effect of grabbing a Fluffal, and so I'll move into that, and now I'm activating the effect of Fluffal Wings. Now, so what Fluffal Wings does, it lets you grab from the graveyard itself and one other Fluffal to banish it, moving it into the banished pile to draw 2 cards. And when you do that effect, as a addition, you can take your Toy Vendor from the field to the graveyard, additionally letting you grab another Fluffal or Edge Imp from your hand. So you can essentially go from having just the starting 2 Fluffals to having an Edge Imp and more Fluffals in your hand. So this combined with the normal effects of Fluffals plays really well together. So you'll see Frightfur Factory comes into play. Now, at the moment, it doesn't have an effect, but its effect overall is I can banish a Poly or Fusion from my graveyard to use basically as a precursory Poly. So, let's keep this going. So now it'll be his turn. You see, I couldn't deal with his hand field, and that's okay, because I just take that to the face. It doesn't matter. Health points don't matter with Fluffals. You're just going for the 1-turn KO. So, we'll see how this goes on. He's gaining health. He's at 9,000 here, and you can see that. So I drew into Fluffal Bear, which is a pretty good hand to draw into, not gonna lie. So when I could do this, I contribute from my hand to the graveyard to put a Toy Vendor directly onto the field from my deck, and so that lets me activate the effect of Toy Vendor all over again. So we're starting from scratch with the Toy Vendors. So we'll take that, and you'll see what I did here is throw the Fluffal Wings into the graveyard, activating Toy Vendor. So I revealed the top card of my deck, which I did, and it was a Fluffal Mouse. So whenever a Fluffal is the top card, you can special summon a Fluffal from your hand. So we'll see how that comes into play here. So I get the special summon of the Owl, so it doesn't use my normal summon, and I get a Poly to my hand. Okay, and now I do the second Fluffal Wings effect. So I do the same thing, where I banish Fluffal Wings and another Fluffal to draw 2 cards and throw Toy Vendor into the graveyard to grab a Fluffal or Edge Imp from my deck. So you can see this is just turn 2. I've got 6 cards in the graveyard, 4 cards banished, 2 on the field, and an 8-card hand. I've got a pretty good lead right now. So we keep going, and I summon Fluffal Mouse, which is I use Fluffal Mouse's effect, which is to put up 2 copies of itself from the deck. Now this will come in play when I start fusion summoning into my stuff. So first thing I did was fusion summon a tiger, and I used 1, 2, 3 materials to do that. So Tiger's effect, whenever you summon, you can forever summon material, you can pop that many cards on the field. So I will choose Medrot, Sephronite, and Ignoble Knight, and that'll destroy them. So don't really need to worry about the spell card because it's an equipped spell card, so it'll go as well. So you'll see here, choose those 3, or those 4, sorry, and then dealt with it like that. Now you might have seen that coming out. So the poly went from my graveyard that I just used back to my hand, and that's actually the effect of Fluffal Cat. So whenever this is used as a fusion material, even if it's the poly you just used, you can grab that from the graveyard and use it again, which comes into a very key play here. So I played poly again on the materials that were on the field. So, and then I got a Frightfur Saber Tiger, which is kind of like the end game boss. You want this on the field. It requires a fusion material, a Frightfur, and then 1 Fluffal to actually make it, but if you use 2 additional materials, it becomes an invulnerable monster, as you can see the effect in that bottom left-hand corner. So, along with that, along with being invulnerable, it also lets me special summon the Frightfur that I just used to summon itself. So it's really still like a 1 Fluffal cost if I have a Fluffal on the field already. So you can see 2 Frightfurs on the field. They both boost each other, so right now I'm at 29-34. And we'll see. Okay, so now I use Frightfur Fusion, which is arguably the best spell card you can have in your deck. You need to run 3 of these. So you can banish fusion materials from your graveyard to special summon a Frightfur onto the field. And so what I'm going to do here is banish about 5 materials and then summon a wolf. So I have a cleared field. I am free to go. Now what wolf does, it lets you attack for every fusion material you used. So I used 5 fusion materials, so I can attack 5 times with wolf. So you can already see that this is GG, game over. Nothing he can do about this. So that's boom, 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 hit right there. And it's game over with just that wolf. And I had plenty left over. I've got a Regeki in hand. I have enough to fusion summon next turn if something were to be blocked. And it was just, you know, there's not much you can do about that. This is turn 2 for me. So you just swarm onto the field. 2 turns, I'm going through 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 cards in 2 turns. I'm just cycling through them. The effects let me grab out of the graveyard, push into the graveyard, pull out of the graveyard, reconstitute in the stronger Frightfur monsters from the Frightfur monsters, get them, they all boost each other. It's just a very powerful deck. Okay, so we saw a small game of Fluffals vs. Noble Knights, so now let's take a look at each individual card to see what it does and how it pertains into the entire deck. So for Fluffals, traps are pretty much the easiest thing to cover. I only run 5, so because it's not really necessary. I'm not really going to go into them too much because they're considered pretty staple traps: Vanity, Solemn Warning, Bottomless, and Quaking Mirror Force. The only one that's not is Frightfur March. And so Frightfur March is pretty much just a protection for one of your Frightfurs, or all of them, really. Now what it does, if something targets, now there's the catch, it has to target. If something targets one of your Frightfur monsters, you destroy that target. And it has some other effects, but it's you never want to use it. It's pretty much getting out Chimera, which is one of the Frightfur fusion monsters, which is really bad. So Frightfur March is just protection, but other than that, traps, you know about traps, so I'm not really going to go into it. So spells in the Fluffal deck are more important. So I'm not going to read you the exact card effects, I'm just going to tell you what they do, and then I'm going to go over, after this one, monsters. So I'm running 3 Polys, 3 Frightfur Fusions, 3 Toy Vendors, Regeki, 1 MST, a Dark Hole, and Frightfur Factory. MST, you know, people like more. Honestly, I wouldn't take out anything that was like Poly, Frightfur Fusion, or Toy Vendor for it, but you could probably take out Dark Hole, I guess. Maybe a Regeki if you wanted to, or more, some more spell removal, but it's not really that necessary. So what everything does, poly is poly. I hope you know what that does. Frightfur Fusion lets you use materials on your side of the field or in your graveyard as fusion materials for a monster. So basically it's poly, but you have to banish it. So that's the drawback there. You have to banish everything. Now, Toy Vendor I've already explained a little bit. Throw one monster or a card from your hand into the graveyard. Then you reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a Fluffal monster, you can special summon a Fluffal monster from your hand. It doesn't have to be the one that you just drew. So why that's useful is because every Fluffal has an effect where it says if this is special or normal summoned from the hand. So then it can get its effect. Then you can get the price of 2 effect Fluffals for the price of 1 normal summon, really. Because normally you'd only be able to do 1 effect of something. Frightfur Factory. That's the only other one that's like a Frightfur card. So basically what that does is if there's a poly already in your graveyard, you can banish it to use fusion materials from your hand or your side of the field as fusion materials. So basically you banish a poly to use a poly. It comes in handy, especially when you want to do multiple stacks of Frightfurs in one go. So here are the Fluffal monsters. Now, the only two monsters that aren't Fluffals are King of the Swamp. And if you don't know what King of the Swamp does, is you tribute it from your hand to get a poly. So it's basically you just have a 5 poly deck. And that is the main purpose of that deck. So I'm running 3 Edgem Chains, 3 Edgem Sabers, 3 Fluffal Mouse, 2 Fluffal Owl, 3 Fluffal Wings, 3 Fluffal Dog, 2 Fluffal Bear, and 1 Fluffal Cat. Now, what Edgem Chain does is whenever it goes into the graveyard from your hand or the field, you can grab a Frightfur card. Now, I use this to grab Frightfur Fusion, so I can just get an extra Frightfur monster after I summon one. Pretty easy. Edgem Saber's pretty good. It's got a pretty okay effect. I'll cover that in later. But it's used to make Frightfur Tiger or Frightfur Wolf, and that's why you need 3 of them, is because Frightfur Tiger is good. Like I said, I'll cover this later. Fluffal Mouse's effect, if you normal summon him, you can summon up to 2 copies of him from your deck, so basically you could just put 3 of him on the field. Bigger Frightfur monsters because of more fusion materials. Fluffal Cat, like you saw earlier in the video, if you use this as a fusion material, you can grab your poly back from the graveyard. Fluffal Bear, you can throw him from your hand into the graveyard to put a Toy Vendor to right onto the field, or you can tribute him to grab a poly from your graveyard. Fluffal Dog lets you grab an Edgem Sabers or any Fluffal from your deck. Fluffal Wings, if it's in your graveyard, you can banish it and itself and one other Fluffal to draw 2 cards. And Fluffal Owl, when he's normal summoned from the hand, normal or special summoned from the hand, you can get a poly from your deck. So, a lot of polys in this deck because you need them. They need to be everywhere because it makes the deck what it is. So the Fluffal Extra deck consists of only Fluffal monsters. Now there are some people who put some others in there, but really I've never been in a situation where a Fluffal monster couldn't handle it, and if I did, it was pretty much game over before that even happened. So the Frightfur monsters are Leo, Wolf, Sheep, Sabertooth, Bear, Tiger, and Chimera. And if you're wondering why Chimera is sideways down at the bottom, it is because never use Chimera. Never, don't ever bring it out. The only reason I have it in my extra deck is so I can make fun of people because I brought it out and I beat them. It is that bad. It takes 3 Frightfurs to bring it out on the field, and it has no protection for itself. It is garbage. Hot steaming pile of garbage. Okay, other than that. Now, what Leo does, it can target 1 card on the field, 1 monster, and destroys it, and then owner of that card takes damage equal to the monster's attack. Frightfur Wolf, for every fusion material used to make it can attack that many times. Sheep, it has Archimedes effect, which means you can't activate trap cards or monster effects while I'm attacking. And when it dies, it comes out of the graveyard. Effect resolves in the graveyard, so even if it's face down, it gets popped or killed while it's face down, effect resolves in the graveyard. When it's in the graveyard, you can special summon it, and when it happens like that, it gains 800 attack. So base 2,000, so if it dies, it comes back, and it gets 2,800. Sabertooth, the win factor, boss monster of this deck. 2 fusion materials to make it, Frightfur card, and a Fluffal, and if you do that, you get to bring a Frightfur from your graveyard, special summon alongside Frightfur Tiger. Boosts all Frightfur monsters by 400 attack. If you use 3 materials to make it, it says invulnerable to card effects and monster effects. So basically the only way to kill it is to send it back to the hand or flip it face down and then kill it. Other than that, no way around it. Basically it's the Fluffal version of Flare Metal Dragon. Frightfur Bear is pretty much a hot steaming pile of garbage as well. It can take control of monsters' attacks, but it's only got 2200 base attack, so it's pretty bad. Frightfur Tiger. Now this is arguably like, in this extra deck, you could probably take out everything except Sheep, Tooth, and Tiger. And it'll be the same, because that's all you really need to use. Now Tiger gets to pop cards on the field, pop as in destroy, up to the number of fusion materials. So, say your enemy has 5 set cards, and you're like, oh man, how am I going to get around these traps? So, somehow you use 5 Fluffal materials, and you can destroy all 5 of them. When he's summoned. So, it's a great thing. So, that's the Fluffal Extra deck. It's pretty straightforward. So, the first combo I want to bring to your attention is the Fluffal Bear, Toy Vendor, Fluffal Wings combination. So, Fluffal Bear has the effect of throwing into the graveyard to put a Toy Vendor on your field. So basically, if you can do that, you have Toy Vendor on the field and Fluffal Bear in the graveyard. So, if you can use the Toy Vendor effect of throwing a card into the graveyard, you can throw Fluffal Wings from your hand into the graveyard. Now, why is that a good thing? Well, bada bing bada boom, look at Fluffal Wings effect. I can take Fluffal Bear and Fluffal Wings to banish them, and take Toy Vendor and put it in my graveyard. 3 cards. So basically it's Fluffal draw power. Why you would want to do this is if you have a handful of Fluffals and you don't have any Edge Imp monsters at all. Basically it's just trying to recycle your hand. You can go through a lot of cards like this, especially if you do it multiple times. Toy Vendor is only a once per turn, as are Fluffal Bear and Fluffal Wings, but those 3 cards should be able to hold you over until the next turn. And as long as you have a Fluffal Bear and a Fluffal Wings, you can just keep repeating this over and over. And guess what? Toy Vendor goes in the graveyard, you can grab a Fluffal, grab your Fluffal Bear, grab your Fluffal Wings, whatever you need, and you can pretty much stack the deck and your hand into whatever you need at the next time. Okay, so this next effect involves Toy Vendor, Edge Imp Sabers, and Fluffal Wings. Say you're already into the duel, and you just need to get an extra leg up. You're missing a piece, you're missing a component, you're just one off opening up a big chain of events. So, say you have an Edge Imp Sabers in your graveyard, and you probably should at this point. Tiger, unless you banished it, but Tiger, Wolf, you should have summoned something involving Edge Imp Sabers, or get it in the graveyard somehow. Now, Edge Imp Sabers' effect is, you can take any card from your hand, put it on the top of your deck, and if it's in your graveyard, you can special summon it in defense. Now, why that's good is because you can get it on the field, but this is kind of like a little backdoor route into that Edge Imp Sabers thing. So, when you have Edge Imp Sabers and you put them in defense, make sure you put a Fluffal monster on the top of your deck. So, why would you do that? So, now you have a Toy Vendor on your field. Take another card from your hand, activate Toy Vendor's effect, throw it into the graveyard, and then, what do you know? Guaranteed Fluffal on your Toy Vendor pull. Now, what does that do again? Okay, so Toy Vendor, and if you draw a Fluffal, you get a special summon it from your hand. So not only do you get a special summon a Fluffal, you can also normal summon. So you get the 2 effects of the Fluffals for one pretty much go. And that's pretty much stack the deck in your favor, because you know it's going to be a Fluffal. There's no luck, no chance involved, because that will be a Fluffal. You have the ability to put that in the top of your deck, and then you have the ability to top deck that card. So basically it's stacking the deck in your favor. This next combo involves Fluffal Mouse and Frightfur Sabertooth. So say you already have a Poly and an Edge Imp monster in your hand, and you still have your normal summon. So normal summon Mouse and bring out 3 copies of him. Normal summon into, or fusion summon into any Frightfur you want. Doesn't matter at this point. Sheep, Tiger if you need to wipe the field a little bit. sheep if you need to, if you just want sheep. I don't know. Maybe you need a reason or something like that. So go for that. Use one mouse and your Edge monster, depending on what one you have in your hand. Bring out your fusion, then fusion again, Frightfur fusion, or Frightfur factory, another poly, maybe you used a cat from your hand, anything, maybe you have 2 polys, who knows. So you want to poly again, bring out your Frightfur Sabertooth, and since you already have the 2 additional mice or mouse cards on the field, you can instantly get a Sabertooth with 3 fusion materials. Now, why would you want to do that is because it gets the effect of it's invulnerable to card effects and monster effects. So basically, it's an easy way to get an indestructible Sabertooth out onto the field. So thanks guys for watching my Frightfur Fluffal preview video. Maybe you learned something, maybe you are looking to build the Fluffal deck. Maybe I can help you out. Leave a comment if I helped you. Leave a comment if I did something wrong. Leave a comment if you didn't like it. Leave a comment if you liked it. Give me some feedback so I can do this better next time. Next profile deck I want to do is my Exodia deck, which is, I've been told, is different from the average Exodia deck. So I don't know how that's going to go, so you can see that next. But Fluffal deck is considered, I like it. It's my favorite deck. It's my best deck. It's relatively inexpensive compared to other top decks. It's a rogue deck, so it can take out, you know, high-level decks on a whim. You can take out the best if it bricks. You know, I don't know about those PePes right now, but yeah, I don't know. It can hold its own. So, you know, give me some feedback. I'd appreciate it. Thanks for checking it out.